What's up, y'all? Will here at Schedulefly. Final episode from the Charleston trip last week. This is Rob Walker of My Father's Mustache. Rob's got a couple of these down in the Charleston area. Super cool dude. His places crush it, do really well, have great reputation down there. These are like British, Irish pubs. I got to hang out with Rob at one of his locations in James Island, just south of Charleston. Guy's got 71 different scotches on his scotch list at that location. 71. Incredible. And we talked a lot about scotch. We talked about why he shifted his allegiance from bourbon to scotch as he kind of grew older and learned about scotch. And man, Rob's he's a fun guy. Has built a really cool business, has a great story. I got to eat some of this incredibly good steak pie while we're sitting there talking. Luckily, I asked him some open-ended questions, so he could talk long enough for me to just devour this thing. It was fantastic. But this is just a cool story. And by the way, Rob's got it figured out. Guy plays golf like every day. We wrapped this up because he was about to head out to the course. It's like a 5 handicap. So successful business and a 5 handicap. Rob, I tip my hat, man. You figured some stuff out. So y'all enjoy this episode. But before we get to it, a word from our sponsor, Pop Menu. Pop Menu is a new partner of Schedulefly this year. Our just phenomenal product and customer service. And I can say that because that's what our mutual customers tell me. So Pop Menu is all about making your day easier and your sales bigger. They will simplify your marketing operations, bring in more guests, capture customer data for personalized remarketing to keep them coming back. With one super simple to use platform that integrates with most point of sales like Toast and Square and many others, Pop Menu starts with a beautifully designed, easy to update, interactive menu that transforms the guest experience online. It includes a brand new website that's optimized for search engines like Google at no additional cost. Automated digital marketing, online ordering, and waitlisting, and you'll never miss another call with their AI answering solution that costs as little as 47 cents an hour. They've answered like over 1 million phone calls for their customers through this thing, so it's pretty cool. Plus so much more. Link in the show notes. Check them out. As I said, I know a lot of customers. I've spoken to a lot of customers that also use Pop Menu. They've said the product's great. It works. It produces results, and they back it up with great service. So I've also worked with a lot of people at Pop Menu and gotten to know them, and just good folks, y'all. Not many companies I'd be able to say all this stuff about, and so we're happy to have them as a sponsor. So hit the link in our show notes and listen to this episode with Rob Walker, My Father's Mustache, Charleston, South Carolina. More episodes coming soon. See ya. All right, here we are. We are recording. We are at My Father's Mustache, one of 2 locations down here in the Charleston area. Rob, introduce yourself.
My name is Rob Walker. I am My Father's Mustache. I've had 30 plus years of restaurant experience or management experience in business. Moved to Charleston in 2009, bought a restaurant called J. Paul's. We're actually sitting where it was, and brought my family down, and we've been here ever since.
So you were in Atlanta when you moved here?
Yeah, we moved to Atlanta in 94, left in 2009. I liked it. I was actually out of the restaurant business for 18 years.
You were out of it for 18 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I used the saying that I actually tripped and fell back into it. It was completely by accident. I was meeting with a business broker, and we were sort of all over the place, and he was like, Rob, let's take it from a different perspective. What do you not want to do? And I said, well, I definitely do not want to do a restaurant or bar ever again. And 3 weeks later, I was back in the restaurant and bar business.
So what had you been doing for the 18 years prior?
I'd been in corporate big box retail management.
Okay.
So Michael's Arts and Crafts, Toys R Us, big stores like that, managing.
But you had been in restaurants prior to that?
Yeah, I'd You know, I'm 13. I was bussing at our country club up in Greenville and sort of got into back of the house in the kitchen at first and worked at St. Simon's Island at a couple of restaurants there, and then moved out to Aspen, Colorado for a few years and worked out there back at the kitchen, then started bartending and then started managing and then slowly worked my way all around, and then went to school at Georgia Southern University and ran some bars down there that had live music and things like that. And you know, if you're smart, you start learning what you're not supposed to do by watching others and seeing how they fail or their mistakes. And, you know, one of the best compliments I ever got was from a former owner and one of my bosses. And he said, you know, I like to take a little credit for your success because you did everything that opposite of what I did. And he goes, you must have stood around and watched and said, whatever Kermit's doing, I'm going to do the opposite. So, you know, it's an interesting business. You can fail just as easily as you succeed. You can make mistakes. No two restaurants are alike. Nothing is the same. I mean, you can have a hit on one side of the town and try and do the same thing on the other side of the town, and it's crickets. So
that is a absolutely true observation. It is. There's so many things that have to go right. Some you can plan for. Some maybe sometimes it's timing, luck. Who knows? But okay, so you came here. You weren't going to get into restaurants. You're dealing with a business brokerage. You come out of big box. I get it. You're like, okay, what kind of business can I buy? Not restaurants. And then this place became available. What happened? What changed?
I guess the, you know, every business owner, every entrepreneur at some point is working for someone else, and something happened. And I remember having a boss, and I was like, I am sick and tired of that person taking the credit and making wrong decisions and me getting blamed or whatever. And I was like, you know what, I'm never going to work for anybody else again. I'm going to do it myself. And so we got down here and you know, the one thing about corporate that I enjoyed, or not necessarily enjoyed, but I learned, is keeping a paper trail, having cameras everywhere, not falling into some sort of stupid little trap or whatsoever. And so I took that approach. It's very similar, you know, running a big box store, running a restaurant. You're still selling something, you're still dealing with the customers, you're still, you know, dealing with laws, taxes, everything else. The only difference is you have a perishable item in the restaurant, so you're constantly trying to figure that out and make sure you don't order too much or too little, you know. And in retail, you order you know, batteries or, you know, toy cars or something, and if you order 12 of them, okay, well, now I got a 2-year supply, but they're not going to go bad. Here you've really got to focus on the expiration of food and understand how that works. But other than that, you know, and you're dealing with customers every day. Every customer is different. Some people want to come in and eat and go, and some people want to sit around and talk and tell you their life stories, and that's what I like about it. I mean, it's a new experience every day. It's a new person every day. I sit at the bar, I walk across the restaurant, and I'm constantly scanning what can I bring up and start a conversation with this person, and let's see where it goes. And, you know, you learn a lot about people. What was the dude, I love the name of this place. I love it so much. I remember, like, it's such, it just, you just conjures up these images before you even set in. Like, how did it? So you had the other place here, but then you opened My Father's Mustache over in Mount Pleasant. That was your first. That's our first.
Okay, so tell me. I mean, I read your site, but like, tell the story behind.
So we had a restaurant on that side of town that was struggling, and we knew I guess there comes a point in every business, every entrepreneur, where if something's not going right, you have two options. You can shut the door and give up, or you can change, adapt, and see what the next thing brings. And my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Europe that summer. My dad, not the whole summer, but we were there a couple of weeks, and then my dad decided to take the kids and the grandkids and everything for one big hurrah. And I looked at the way they did pubs in Europe, and I was like, we do them completely wrong here. We don't understand. Our mentality has come in, spend your money, get out, so we can turn the table. But over there, your table's your table for the evening,
right?
And they're not trying to rush out. So we decided we wanted to do an English pub instead of an Irish pub. Everybody seems to do an Irish pub, and I don't like being the same. So we had already built it. We had come up with everything but the name, and my God, we were struggling with the name forever.
Yeah.
And I want to say we were 3 weeks away from opening, and I have this old picture of my great-great-grandfather on my desk. He was Robert Jefferson Walker II, and I'm Robert Jefferson Walker V.
The fifth?
Fifth, yeah.
Wow.
And looking at this picture of him, he's got this big burly mustache from, the picture was taken in 1905. And, it's just a squirrel across his lips. It is just huge, and he's holding this bowler cap. And I just kind of looked at it. It was November, so mustaches were everywhere. No shave November, all of this stuff, and we were supposed to open in January. And I just looked at it and said, well, it's my father's father's father. And my father's mustache rolled off my tongue by accident. And I remembered saying, what the hell did I just say? And I ran out. My manager, or my bar manager at the time, was going to be my manager at the new location. And he knew the struggles we were having trying to come up with a name. And I looked at him and I said, what about my father's mustache? And he looked at me and he said, that's actually brilliant. I ran in, checked the website addresses. I bought both spellings of the word mustache, the English and the American spelling of it. Both websites were available, and off we ran. And it's funny, I went back and told my chef at the time, I was like, we're going to call it my father's mustache. And she was like, I will never use those words. And she hated answering the phone. Anyway, she'd be bar. But I wanted a name that was different. Yeah. All good English bars have just weird, strange names, and
yes, they do.
I thought it just worked out perfect, and everybody now just calls it the Stash.
The Stash.
So
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so one of the things that you and I were talking about before we started recording, so I want you to rehash some of this. We're just looking at this. How many scotches do you have on your?
Today we have. I want to say it's about 73.
73.
Yeah.
I would imagine you have as much or more scotch as anybody in the state.
Yeah, I had a rep in here the other day. Actually, a man named Rory Glasgow. I think that's right. He is a head of Brown-Forman Liquors, which has Glendronach, Glenglassaugh, and Ben Riot scotches. And he looked up and he said, I don't know that I've ever seen a better scotch selection in the United States.
Do you have this many at both your locations?
No, God. I don't know why I wanted to do it different over here. I just, from the minute I started building this place, and I built everything myself, from the bar to the back bar to all the trim work.
Really?
I did it all myself. I had an electrician come in and a plumber come in, but all the mill work.
You built all this?
Mm-hmm. Every single
Did you have experience in construction, or did you just
I really
self-taught?
Sort of self-taught. I worked when I got out of college. I had a lot of snow ski experience because I lived in Aspen, Colorado. When we moved to Atlanta, they had one of the largest ski shops on the East Coast there. It's a place called Rocky Mountain Sports. And they were looking for people with snow ski experience, and I was like, I've got that. So I went down and worked there for about 7 years. And one morning I got a call that our building had burned down. So myself and the manager sort of rebuilt it all. He had been in cabinetry and construction, and he taught me everything I knew. I didn't know how to read a ruler then. And it was a nice little mental break from things. You just kind of get into a rhythm when you're building things, and I would get here at 5, 6 in the morning. I had dozens of saws and chop saws and radial saws and screwdrivers and everything all around, and I would start working, and the next thing I know, my phone would ring, and my wife's like, "Are you coming home for supper at 7:45?" And I'd be like, "I've been here 14 hours."
Wow.
So, yeah. And then everything hanging on the wall means something. A friend of mine found the Glen Eagles sign there from Scotland, and those rugby balls up there from a local high school team that my son played on, and the
that's
golf
awesome.
club up there came from my grandfather, and most of the art on the wall came from my grandparents' house. Anything to do with England, the Queen, the King, anything we could find, we just framed and started hanging up.
Wow. I still can't believe you. That's a lot of freaking work, man. That's impressive.
Well,
Saved you a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, the first quote I got was $960,000 to build this place, and I did it myself for $345, I think, $350.
Wow.
Started December 6th.
That's make or break money. I mean,
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. And that's why a lot of restaurants fail. I see people every day that'll put $1 million, $1.5 million into a restaurant, and then they're charging $14 or $12 for a beer, and people will pay that once, but they won't pay it over and over, and I get it. Decor is everything, but you're building a restaurant for $1 million, $1.5 million. You're never going to get that money back. I mean, it takes a long time. Food. If you're doing everything right in food, which is 30% food cost, 30% labor, 30% overhead, you're making 10 cents on the dollar. And if you're doing that, they'll take your picture and hang it in the Restaurant Hall of Fame. It's just unheard of to make 10% on food. Most restaurants are 2%, 3%, 4%. So you got $1 million in food, you've made $30,000 in net profit for the year. You can't survive on that. And that's where the bar comes in. I mean, you're not making a ton because you got taxes and everything else that goes on. But if you can make 20 to 25% off your alcohol, that kind of covers it a little bit. So it's a weird business. It really is. It's not like retail where you buy something for $1 and sell it for $2. It just doesn't happen in retail. It's just a different animal.
Well, so the one in Mount Pleasant, what year did you?
We built that in 2014, I think, so we're coming up on 9 years.
And did you do that build up?
Built that one. Well, it was we had originally had another restaurant there that I had it designed, and there were certain aspects of it that I built. But when we did the changeover, I shut everything down and rebuilt it myself, just because we were on a budget, and my time's free.
Right. Okay, so that was 14, and then you had, so Mount Pleasant, that's on the other side of the.
Yeah, it's 2 bridges from here, so that's usually as far as any Charlestonian will drive. They'll go over one bridge, but 2 is
but not
a
2.
lot.
So that's why you have the second one here, and you've got, obviously, you must have a lot of soccer or football. But I call it soccer.
It was really weird. I didn't expect it to be as big as it was. People always say, I bet you get a lot of people in for American football. And I'm like, not really. I mean, most bars, everybody shows American football. You go down to IHOP and watch American football, or Applebee's or anything else, but nobody shows soccer.
Yeah.
Our first, so we opened in 2014 in February, and the World Cup was that June started. So we had 4 or 5 months. And we were like, well, we think it's going to be big. We think we're gonna get a lot of people for it. So I want to say there was 23 days of games, and we sold just shy of 19,000 beers in 23 days.
Good grief!
It was absolutely insane. But it was because we were in the same time zone. You know, this last World Cup was in Qatar, and most of the games were 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and you don't get the same. You know, if it's a 4 o'clock game or 2 o'clock game, people will leave at lunch and cut out for the rest of the day. But very few people are going to skip the whole day and come in and drink beer and watch their European soccer, football.
Okay, so you've got 70 some odd scotches here. You got some impressive bottles you were showing me a minute ago. Some of these ones are $400 a bottle. I'm very interested, if you don't mind indulging me and just talk a little bit about the difference between bourbon and scotch and why you lean towards scotch.
Well, I mean, I was always a bourbon fan. I've loved bourbon since 4 years before I could legally drink. Growing up in the South, you drink bourbon.
Yeah.
Bourbon's an interesting juice. I mean, you've got in order to be called a bourbon, you have 9 criteria you have to follow, and there's not a lot of room for play. You can mix the rye content a little more, or
51%.
51% corn,
at least,
and then the rest is rye, or a couple of other things I think you may be allowed to do.
Charred white oak barrel.
Charred American oaks. Yeah. Minimum of 4 years. I can't remember all 9 of the criteria. Certain alcohol point. But that's it. I mean, Jack Daniel's is a bourbon, but they add one extra step and they filter it through charcoal, and now all of a sudden it's not a bourbon; it's a Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah.
So they're very structured, and to me, if you're trying to keep bourbon and only have bourbon, okay, you can have some good bourbons out there, but they're all sort of based the same. So Scotch is a little different. I mean, Scotch has to be made in Scotland. It has to be seasoned in oak, but most are finished in American oak former bourbon barrels. And then, you can play from there. They'll let you do whatever. So you can take a malt and germinate it, and then you can smoke it. Run peat underneath it, and have a really smoky, sultry, heavy Scotch. Or you can not do that. I mean, there's God, I don't even know how many distilleries there are. There's probably 200 distilleries in Scotland, and every one of them is completely different. They're finishing them in sherry casks or rum casks or Olorosa's casks, or mixing them with this or that. The only thing that the Scotch say you cannot do is you can't add anything any chemical additives or anything. I think you can add a little color to it, but most traditional or people that take their Scotch seriously would never do that. But most bourbons, you're getting a 4 to 8 year seasoning in the cask, and scotches, God, these decent ones really just start at 12 years and go up from there. And that's a lot of time to sit in an oak barrel and mature, and then they'll take it from this oak barrel and put it in this one, or mix, anything other than that. So you can just have fun with Scotch if you're a distiller or whatever you want to do. So it's quite amazing.
That looks really good.
We were just in Scotland for Christmas, and I went into this bar in Aberdeen. We were told to go there, and I walked up to the bar, and the bartender said, "Can I take your order?" And my eyes were the size of saucers. And I said, "How many scotches do you have in here?" And she stood erect and stepped back, and she said, "Today we have 503 scotches."
503? Grief.
And that's what I said. Well, maybe not that, but I said, well, and my wife drinks gin, and I was looking at the gin. I was like, "How many gins do you have?" "Today we have 127 gins." And I was like, I've never even seen that. They were named World Bar of the Year.
Where is this place?
There was a place called The Grill, and it was in Aberdeen, Scotland, which was a little north. And we had never been to Aberdeen. We were on our way up to Inverness. And Inverness, you get up there, you get the Highland Scotches, you get the Speyside Scotches, and you get the bulk of Scotches in there. So it's a great place.
Tell me what I'm diving into here.
All right, so that's a steak and mushroom pie. So that is pastry shell top and bottom. And then it's short rib that was braised for 24 hours in Guinness and garlic and a little red wine. And mixed with mushrooms and baked in that pastry shell.
It's freaking good, man. What is the island over there in Scotland? Ely? Where they make a lot of the scotches, or is that
it's pronounced Islay.
Islay.
Isay. And Islay scotches are traditionally a very peaty, very smoky scotch, and it's usually what most people say they absolutely
Is that where like the biggest ones are? Or?
Not well.
Why does that have such a
it's just
connotation
different.
with?
It's the only area that smokes their malt.
Okay.
So usually what you do is you take the malt and you wet it and you germinate it, and the process which germination has started, they end it and they grind it and they dry it out, and over there they run peat. They cut peat from the bogs, which is, thousands of years. I forgot what it is, but I want to say every foot down is 1,000 years of soil. It actually may be a meter down, but it's 1,000 years of soil. And it burns really well, and they just smoke the malt, and then they start the distillation process, and a lot of that smoke gets in there. And it's a very, very pungent, smoky, medicinal, iodine-y smell, and a lot of people don't like it. But if you like an Islay Scotch, like Lagavulin or Laphroaig or Ardbeg or Talisker or Balmore, I mean, there's I don't know how many scotches are on Islay. There may be 15 to 20 producers out of the 200 that are on there, but it's a very distinctive, very interesting scotch. It was the first scotch that actually got me into scotches, the Lagavulin 16, and that's an expensive scotch, but it was so different. I'd never had anything like it, and that's what started me on my journey.
When did you start drinking scotch?
I don't think the scotch was probably the first thing I ever drank when I was 17 years old at a party I wasn't supposed to be at, and I remember grabbing a bottle and turning it up and never being more sick in my life. And my mom just standing at the bathroom door as I was hugging the commode just saying, yep, that's why you don't do that.
Learned that lesson the hard way.
So I stayed off of scotches till I was 43, I think. And that's when I had Lagavulin for the first time. And
did you have it over there or here?
Had it over here. I'd run down the street to place an order for the bar. One of the guys down there had just had a baby. They were celebrating. I had a 3-hour drive in front of me, and they were offering me a glass. And I was like, I got to drive. It's Christmas. I'm going up to my family's. I don't need anything to drink, and I'm sure as hell not drinking scotch. And they started razzing me a little bit, and finally I was like, okay, fine. I took the sip and ran out the door and just licked my lips for the next 3 hours thinking, what is that? It's the most complex thing I'd ever had in my life. And that, of course, was a Saturday, so I came back on Sunday, and they weren't open. And at 10 a.m., I was at the liquor store that day going, what in the world did you guys give me to drink? And they were all laughing, and they're like, we've got them hooked now. And I was. And it's an interesting love affair. There's a lot of things out there that I don't like, and there's a lot of things out there that I am amazed at. I had all of my favorites down before we left in December to go back over there, and my whole list changed the minute I got there. I was like, I want to try some things I'd never tried. A guy named Billy Walker, who's a legend over there in Scotland. Absolute master at his craft. Worked for a company called Ben Ryack for about 22 years, and a company came in and bought him out. And he and a couple of other people went and bought a company called Glenaleckie. And Glenaleckie was a filler scotch for some companies. I want to say they were a mixer for Johnny Walker or maybe a couple of other ones. But nobody knew of them because they really didn't sell their own stuff. And in 5 years, he's produced some of the best scotch I've ever had in my life. Rich, complex, dark. Everybody I've tried it with, and it's not a lot of people because it's expensive and I have to like you a lot. But I am blown away at how good it is, and so are they.
What's this company called?
It's called Glenaleckie.
Glenaleckie. And how long has he been doing it?
They bought it in 2017. Now, they had scotch in there because they were selling it. Okay. So there were barrels of it that they had from the 70s or the 80s. So they had some old stuff in there, but I don't know what he does. But, I'm going back over there in June, and I can't wait to go up to that distillery and shake his hand. It's a Speyside Scotch, so it's I don't know exactly where they are, but they'll be somewhere up in the northern part of Scotland, just south of Inverness, I'd say. They may even be a little southeast of Inverness. There's a ton of distilleries up there, a ton of really good ones from Dalwhinnie, and there's hundreds.
Does your wife drink scotch?
She tolerates it.
She tolerates it.
Usually it's poured over haggis, and she has a bite of it and then shakes her head and goes right back to her gin and tonic. But,
that's funny. But she likes it over there too. You'll go a couple times a year?
Yeah, we usually do. My daughter goes to school over there in England, and then she'll allow me to go up and play golf, and that's my two vices, I would say, is Scotch whiskey and golf. And when we were over there in December, I walked down and played the old course. It was 35 degrees and snowing.
Oh, really?
And
you played the old course?
And I played the old course, and I was there up at 9:30 in the morning, and the guy was like, do you require a caddy? And I said, yeah. And he got me the grumpiest damn caddy. He did not want to be there. And I would walk up to my ball and say, hold my ski jacket, take my ski jacket off and hit the shot and put the ski jacket back on. It was quite cold, but it was, it's still packed that day. They're playing from sun up to sundown, and, it would get light about 7:30, but by 2:33, it was getting dark over there. So,
really?
Yeah, it gets dark over there.
Do you play a lot of golf here in Charleston?
Absolutely, yeah. Whatever you consider a lot.
How often do you play?
Every day.
Not a lot.
Yeah. It's supposed to go off in about 45, 50 minutes.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. We'll get you out of here then.
Yeah, I grew up playing them. My grandfather taught me the game, and leave it to the Scots to come up with the greatest game ever invented and the greatest juice ever poured. after that, they were like, they dropped the mic and said, "We're done."
We're good. So you were, I have to say, this is a total just side conversation, but you were in Aspen for a few years. I grew up skiing up at Beach and Sugar.
Oh, yeah. And I broke 2 collarbones, one on each of those mountains.
You know, I always tell people, I'm like, if you can ski here, if you can ski in the North Carolina mountains, you can ski anywhere. You're dealing with like...
Because it's not skiing, it's skating.
It's skating, and it's like dealing with, you know, dudes that go up there that have never put skis on, that have a flask and overalls and blue jeans.
3 cans of Scotch Guard.
And they go straight up to the Scotch Guard. Remember the jeans with Scotch Guard?
Scotch Guard, yes.
So I'm like, man, because the first time I went out west, I'm like, holy... I tell my wife doesn't ski, and she's always like, what's the big deal? I'm like, okay. To give you something you can relate to, ski, because I get... Like, I first of all, I completely refuse to ski at Sugar Mountain anymore. Last year I went up there, and it was the whole experience was so bad. I told my kids we're never
Well, if you go to the top of the mountain and you can ski decent, you can go from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
you know,
it's crazy. So,
and you go out west and you go to the top of the mountain, and it take you a couple hours to get down.
It takes a long time. Well, I was explaining to her, I'm like, go to Myrtle Beach to the Strip, in the middle of the Strip, you know, on July 4th, like that's Sugar Mountain and Beach Mountain, and then go to the Sanctuary at Keel Island, that's out west.
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference. Yeah. Like it's that extreme. But I was in Aspen for the first time last month. We have a customer out there, and I went out and did a podcast out there, and I actually met another customer who lives in Boulder. He skis a lot. We've become good friends. So he met me up there, and we skied for a day. But, dude, Aspen is I mean, it's always been one of the nicer, kind of ritzy. But the people that go, I mean, it's just, it is extreme wealth now, and they can't, you know, the restaurant people are struggling only to get people to work there because they have to live down in whatever the, like,
Basalt.
Yeah, like
Carbondale.
Carbondale. Yeah, it's like 45 minutes away or an hour away, like down the mountain, and you know, because it's just the real estate there has gotten
there's some
crazy,
some employee housing up there, but my first year. Man, that city, eight people alive in their first year there. But if you could make it through your first season, you started to learn some ins and outs, and you started to get a little better jobs. I mean, I remember my last year there. We were there from 1st of December to really the first week of April, and I think I made $160,000 that year, and I was there 5 months.
Are you serious?
Yeah, oh
Good
God.
grief.
I mean, you could make...
Did you work at the Little Nell?
No, I didn't. That was you had to know somebody to get Little Nell or the Gann or the Jerome. Those were big dollar. I worked at a place called the Timber Mill, which is now owned by the ski company there.
Okay. Yeah, they own everything now.
Yeah, and then I worked at another place called the Inn at Aspen, which was underneath Buttermilk Mountain. That's where I really learned to bartend. And I remember one day I was sitting there at night. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. And a gentleman came up and he sat at the bar and he says, I would like a glass of Louis XIII. And I had no clue what Louis XIII was. And I was like, sir, I don't believe we have that. And he said, no, you have it. You have to just call the manager on duty. So I called the manager on duty and said, I have a gentleman here that wants Louis XIII. And he says, I'll be right there. So he comes out, and it's in this beautiful lilac crystal. And he pours the glass, and he rings it up in the computer. And this is 1992, and it was $120 a shot then.
Oh, God.
So the manager grabs the bottle and goes back to the office. And about 5-7 minutes later, the gentleman says, I'll have another glass. So I call the manager, and he brings out and pours another glass, and he starts to walk away. And the gentleman says, excuse me, are we going to be doing this all night? And the manager says, well, sir, this is a very expensive bottle, and we don't keep it. And he goes, I know how much it is. I'm buying it. He said, how many shots are left in the glass? And he was like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10. He just peels out $100 bills and lays them on the counter and leaves. He says, leave the bottle. And I'm talking to the gentleman. It's not a lot of people in the bar that night. And turns out he was Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia's head of security.
Oh my God.
And when they land in the United States Secret Service takes over for any foreign dignitary. So he's not allowed to carry a gun. He's not allowed to protect them.
Right.
So he's like, the minute we land on U.S. soil, I hand over my weapon, and I'm on vacation. And I was like, that's fantastic. So he drank 2 bottles of Louis XIII that night. I think I don't know what his tab was, over $5,000. He tipped me $2,000 and let me have a drink of it. And it was the worst stuff I'd ever had in my life. I wasn't used to cognac back then. But Aspen had serious money. In fact, Prince Bandar had a house there. I'm assuming it's still there. It was 55,000 square feet.
In Aspen?
In Aspen.
Oh my gosh.
He had, I want to say it was 22 bathrooms, and the city made him install his own sewage treatment plant on his property because they didn't want him overloading.
Good grief.
The city system. Yeah, he had. There's a lot of money in Aspen.
There's a lot of money in Aspen.
Yeah.
Well, then, a lot of money in Charleston these days.
Yeah.
People with their third homes.
There's some money in Charleston, too.
Well, I don't want to keep you from the golf course. I'd like to come play golf with you sometime.
Absolutely, anytime.
It sounds like I could just pick a day. Just about.
You pretty good. Well, yeah, my wife says in her next life she wants to be me. So.
Well, your kid. Well, last thing I want to. Okay, so your kids are. How old are they now?
I've got a son who is 22. He's in the United States Navy. He's off the coast of. I don't even know that I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
He's not here.
Okay.
And then I have a daughter who is getting a master's degree in Canterbury, England right now. She's studying architecture. She's known since she was 7 years old. She wanted to be an architect. So
that's awesome.
Got 2. They're both out of the house, and it's a weird feeling.
Does your son, he wants to make a career in the military?
I don't think so.
Have they ever worked for you?
Let's just say I've paid them. I don't know that what they were doing was working.
Yeah, okay. They're not going to do this?
No. Yeah. They're not going to do it for me, at least. They've worked in other restaurants.
Uh-huh.
I got them jobs in other restaurants because I wanted them to know what it was like. They work in Dad's restaurant. They're usually on my computer.
Right.
Or, goofing off. So I learned right away, if you want a summer job, I'll find you one. So, yeah.
Well, this has been a pleasure. By the way, that was fantastic.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. There's not much left.
No, there's nothing left, dude. But that's like, I have to drive back to Charlotte. I'd like to have a nap after having that.
It was set up perfect because they dropped it off and you asked a really long-winded question, and by the time I was finished with my answer, you were done.
I ate that pretty fast, man. That was fantastic. That's really, really good.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Awesome place.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. Thanks for your business. Yeah. We appreciate it. And I stayed at the Restoration last night.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They're a customer. I stayed there because they hooked me up. Like I'm not paying that much for a place. they gave me like a friends and family rate. But I have to bring my wife back there, and she'll love that. And so I got to get back down there. When I do, I'll try to catch up with you. Maybe
please do.
I mean, I can carry my weight. I'm not a good golfer. But
what's your handicap?
I'll shoot 90. Like
okay. That's fine.
Like
I'll
bogey golf or whatever. So I'll have 2 or 3. That will come from 2 or 3 blow up holes. Where it's just like I just get me off the hole. And then normally, but otherwise I'm okay. Right. I won't want to hold you up.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm a 5.
That's balling.
I've played all of my life. Grew up in Greenville on a golf course. In fact, my next door neighbor growing up was Jay Haas.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Jay and Jan lived up the street, and I think they had 5 kids. And then they moved when I was 14, 15, something like that. I think Bill Haas at the time was 6 or 7, so he was, we didn't know what he was going to become. He was going to become a great golfer. But there was a lot of good golfers that came out of Greenville, and Jay was sort of one of my good friends' cousins, I guess. He was related to Jan, and then there were some other people, Dillard Pruitt and Brad Faxon and Beth Daniel. They all came out of the Greenville area. And
wow.
So, yeah, it was a fun place place to grow up.
Well, it's a good day for you to hit the course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
All right, y'all. More coming soon. Stay tuned.